Welcome to this instalment of the IPM webinar series. My name's Emma Kirk and I'm the General Manager here at the Institute of Promotional Marketing. Today, I'm delighted to welcome IPM members Big Little London, who will be taking us through their latest insights into the best practice of influencer marketing. Taking you through the insights today is agency founder Emma Critchley-Lloyd and Head of Influencer Marketing, Holly Eddleston. Welcome to you both.
Hi, thank you.
And now we know that influencer marketing has become a staple tactic within the marketing mix, and it really provides brands with a great opportunity to engage with consumers by tapping into audiences of online influencers. But as well as the benefits, there are also some challenges and considerations that need to be factored in to ensure that campaigns land successfully. Today's webinar, Holly and Emma will be taking you through some of the key tips, insights and case studies to make sure that your influencer campaigns and collaborations are a success. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you should have a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So please feel free to submit some questions via there. And we'll make some time at the end to come round to those. For anybody who's joining late or wishes to share the webinar, it will be available on the IPM website, but you should also receive a follow-up link to let you know when this is available. So now I'm going to hand over to Emma and Holly, who are going to take you through these great insights.
Thank you, Emma. I'm just going to get it up. So, how to ace influencer marketing for your next promotional campaign. Not the punchiest of titles, but given the two subject matters, we really didn't have much choice with title. It was the best that we could have. But before we go into that, we thought it was important, that we just take you through who we are, a bit about Big Little London and why we have credibility to talk to you about this subject today. So I founded Big Little London back in 2017. And we specialize in PR, social media, influencer marketing, and brand strategy. And the three things around influencer, PR, and social, they all work hand in hand. And you get most bang for buck when they are collaborative. You can't have social without influencer or influencer without social. And PR sits in the balance of those as well. But what we were finding is lots of clients were coming to us saying they want media coverage, saying they want to work with influencers, but they weren't influencer or PR ready. So that's when we took a step back and introduced brand strategy into the mix as well. So everything from the frameworks, so the vision, mission, value proposition, right through to visual language and execution of the design. And we're still a small agency, and we kind of want to stay that way, because that's when we think the magic really happens, is when the client gets what they need and it's in hand's reach, not necessarily arm's length. But before I joined and set up Big Little London, I spent 4 years at a global promotional marketing agency. And part of my role, I was responsible for writing the award entries, of which the IPM was one of them, and wrote many award-winning entries and IMCs and CIMs and all of the other acronyms you can think of in the marketing world. And we were lucky enough to be selected as Agency of the Year for 1 year for the IPM. And in 2017, I was part of the IPM 30 under 30. So the heritage of my career has been steeped in promotional marketing, and now it has that more PR influencer element, and obviously with the help of Holly, who will now introduce herself as well.
Hi, yes. So I'm Holly. As Emma said, I'm head of influence marketing at Big Little London. I've got 12 years of experience working within the influence marketing sector, and I've worked on brands such as Red Bull, Peroni, Nastro Azzurro and Microsoft. But I was very much, started in influencer marketing when it wasn't really a thing. So we were, swapping Revlon lipsticks with Zoella for a post for a lipstick, which now she would probably make about £20,000 for that post. So it was really, really at the start of the influence marketing space. So it's come a long way, and along the that time, Instagram has come along. At the very start, we were kind of doing Facebook and Twitter, a little bit of YouTube. And obviously now, you know, the sector has shifted so much. So I could tell you many a story.
And we will throughout as well.
Yeah.
So just to show you the team as well. So as well as myself being having a career in promotional marketing before Big Little London, some of the team that you see on here have also as well. So Sophie and Helen both worked at another promotional marketing agency for much longer than I did as well. So we have a rich heritage in this space. So we know the sorts of challenges and objectives that you're being faced with by your clients and brands. And really what we want to do by joining the IPM is bridge that gap between promotional marketing world and influencer marketing, because at the moment they're quite siloed, and there is more that could be done to make sure that more bang for buck is being delivered through the influencer element. So what you can expect from the 45 minutes or so that we'll be talking at you, there'll be time for questions obviously throughout, and we'll answer them at the end. But why influencer marketing? We'll take you through some top tips, what the winning formula is that we go by, and then particularly for you guys, an influencer strategy for promotions, and then of course before coming on to any questions. So why are we all here? Why influencer marketing? Well, we're not stupid, that's why. So last year influencer marketing grew to $16.4 billion as an industry, and businesses are on average making $5.2 for every $1 that they're spending. And we're seeing that even within our own campaigns that we're running on behalf of clients, where we're seeing up to 9.25% ROI. And that was just for, in one example, just for years 1 and 2, based on client retention rates. Years 3 and 4, we're going to obviously massively increase on that. And there's been a huge increase in the number of searches in influencer marketing since 2016, and 90% of people believe that it's effective, and it is. And we're gonna show you why. And obviously you believe it's why as well, because you wouldn't be here otherwise. But 61% of people say that they trust influencer recommendations, versus 38% of people that say they trust branded social media content. And that's because we see influencers on our phones all day, every day. They've become integrated into our lives, just like an extended member of your friends or family, virtual version. So the relationship is a trusted one, just like if a friend or a family member was recommending a product or service, you would take that recommendation on board. Influencer marketing is no different to that. So as a brand, or as an agency representing a brand, it gives your clients the opportunity to really be part of the culture and the conversations that are taking place right amongst the target audience where those conversations are happening. And you get to do it in a way that is much less forced than if it was coming across from the brand channel itself. So we'll go on to the top tips, and Holly's going to kick off.
Yeah, so we could talk, all day to you about influencer marketing, but we've really tried to sort of just pin down 5 tips that we can give to you and talk about today. But of course, if you want to talk about any other area, we can talk about it at the end, or another time. But we wanted to touch on micro versus macro, and sort of how to navigate just that. So there's been a real rise of micro influencers of late. And the reason is because they have 60% higher engagement than a macro influencer. They get 20% higher conversion rates, which obviously helps brands boost their sales. And then 80% of people have bought something from an influencer. So of course, you want to work with an influencer, but taking a step back slightly. So, thank you. A micro influencer has generally about 5 to 50,000 followers on Instagram. And I'm talking about Instagram specifically today, but of course, we could probably apply most of these rules to any platform at the moment. But more followers doesn't necessarily mean more engagement. And by that, I mean likes, comments, saves. So, we want to generate really high engagement rates, but not necessarily pay the earth for it. So as an example, Kim Kardashian probably, has one of the largest followings on Instagram right now, but her engagement rate is 0.49%. Someone that we've recently worked with on Instagram has got 29,000 followers, and she has got almost 7% engagement rate, which, obviously you're not reaching as many people, but the people who you are paying for, more of those people are engaging. We have found that, micro-influencers have a stronger relationship. They are built on trust. And, of course, you can really be quite laser focused on the target demographic.
Sorry, Holly, I skipped. You finished. So long-term versus one-off, and what we're seeing is brands are increasingly prioritizing these longer-term partnerships with fewer, more authentic influencers. And that's because one-off hashtag ad just doesn't work. It just doesn't cut through. It just doesn't cut it on the platforms today, where they're very much pay-to-play platforms anyway. So unless you are putting boosted spend behind some of these posts, those which in itself can often cost more and not get as much value as working with an influencer over longer term. You could work with an influencer over a longer period, get more deliverables out of them, and at the same time build more frequency with your target audience, their followers. So we're seeing this more and more. And it's increasing brand recall, it's increasing ROI. And what's really interesting from a promotional aspect of it is these long-term partnerships, when they go well, they have the power to turn into product collaborations, which in itself is a huge promotional opportunity for brands and agencies. If an influencer and a brand partnership is working so well that they're deciding to do a collaboration on a product, that has the potential to embed that brand within that audience and within that target demographic, even more so than just a one-off ad. And this is an example not of a brand product collaboration, but of a long-term partnership that we did with our client ALA Insurance. And this is Anna, who you see pictured here. And this was not just a nice to have, was the last of an 8-month campaign period that we had with Anna, where she had, throughout those 8 months, there was a series of campaigns that took people on an authentic journey of her own education into what gap insurance is, how she never knew about what it was before she started working with ALA, and how now she can't live without it, and the effect that it's had on her peace of mind and her financial, knowing that she's 100% financially protected. And what we did with Anna is we make sure that obviously we give any creator some level of autonomy over how they craft their scripts. But in terms of the messaging, we worked with Anna to make sure that the key messages were getting across, but also that it could only work with her audience. So that's really key, and we'll come on to that point a bit later. But because of that reason, the results that we saw were just phenomenal. So 4.2% ROI in year 1 and 2, based on client retention rates. We're going to expect to see that rise to 35.9% in year 3 and 4. There was a 21% click to quote conversion rate and 33 new customers. And while that doesn't sound huge, in the context of what we were selling over Instagram, we were getting the same conversion rates as what our client was seeing with some of their other affiliates. So people already in the market for buying a car, Auto Trader, Piston Heads, Honest John, car, a lot of them, particularly on Piston Heads, are car enthusiasts who know what gap insurance is. This was a brand new audience, a lot of whom needed to be educated on what gap insurance was first and foremost, but then to interrupt the social feed, get them to actually buy this niche insurance product on Instagram is huge. Because no one goes on Instagram thinking they're going to buy insurance. It's a very much considered purchase, especially to this audience that we were targeting. As a result, we got a 7% organic engagement rate. There was absolutely no additional paid spend put behind any of these posts. And just for context, the average on a brand channel is 1%. So and we looked at this across all other mainstream insurance brands, their channels on Instagram are predominantly 1%, or some of them are actually even less than that in terms of engagement rate. So it was a really, really great campaign for ALA insurance.
So selecting influencers. So this is really key when, finding influencers to work with for a specific campaign or for your brand, on an ongoing basis. So influencers really have to align with your brand's values. So I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago when Kourtney Kardashian partnered with Pretty Little Thing, and everyone went crazy because they're saying, but you are all about eco, and you talk about non-plastic, but then you're working with a company that doesn't align. And, you get a lot of backlash for misalignment. So it's really important to make sure that whatever brand, what your ethos is as a brand, that the influencer also stands for the same things, because people will retaliate badly if you don't. So you've got to get your tone of voice right. You've got to get your like-minded values, on point, just to make sure that you get the most authentic engagement. And when you do get it wrong, if you go into the next slide, so we're not going to name names because it's not nice, but there has very recently been a car brand who's been working with a big chef on Instagram, and his content is very much restaurant related, a lot about butter, which might give him away, and sort of cooking content in the kitchen. And then all of a sudden there's content that sticks out like a sore thumb because he is now promoting a car which just has nothing to do with anything that he talks about. It's a real misalignment, and all of his audience has noticed, in 90% of the comments, everyone is saying, oh, he's just doing this for the money. Those kinds of comments are, I'm assuming, not what the brand wanted to see. And one person in particular said, haha, this is one of the worst brand ambassador fits ever. Another one, which was my favorite, was, I'm going to invoice you for the time you've just wasted making me watch this video. So, not great. That's not what we want. We are looking for, comments of people who, oh, I want to try that. Oh, that looks great. Where can I buy that? Oh, I'd love to book a test drive. They are the kinds of comments that the car brand would have been wanting to see, and I'm sure the agency as well. So with, just that misalignment makes a huge difference, and I'm sure it hasn't done anything for brand perception or brand uplift. So it's really key.
Yeah.
And then just thinking about the quality versus quantity of your audience. So there are loads of amazing tech brands who can help you to find the best sort of influencers for your campaign, but there is definitely not one who can do everything. I think tech is great for sourcing correct influencers and for finding out where their audience is, who they are, what their engagement rate is. But apart from that, you really need a human connection. You need a person negotiating for you. You need, whether it's you or an agency like ourselves, you need to have that human connection to know how much to pay for a specific campaign, or for a post or a story or whatever it is that you're doing. And you also need people to write the creative briefs for you as well. And we'll go into that a little bit more later. But definitely be mindful that there's no sort of one tech solution. And then data. So this is really, really important as well. So let's say you are, selling a water bottle brand, but you're only selling it to a UK audience. And then you work with an influencer who has who has 90% of their followers are US based. Again, the data does not match what you're trying to do. I've got another example. Actually, we were working with a swimwear brand quite a long time ago now, probably 10 years ago, and they were using a bikini model to sell their swimwear, and they weren't getting any sales. They didn't understand. When we looked into the data, all of the followers were actually male, and they were just following because they were looking at this bikini model and not buying the bikinis. So you have to make sure that your audience who you're talking to are the people who are also going to buy it. It's a bit of a silly example, but you understand the point that I'm making.
It's silly, and it happened such a long time ago, but it's still happening now.
Oh God, it happens all the time.
We see it so often with influencers that we know where their followers are based, and we know the brands are only selling in the UK, and it's like, this isn't going to deliver for you, because most of the people that you're reaching aren't based in the market where you're actually selling the product.
Yeah, but so much of that due diligence isn't done at the start, and it's sort of, you're setting yourself up to fail. So if all of that sort of due diligence isn't done right up front, it doesn't matter how good your creative is. If the people aren't there who can buy it, you're never going to win.
So on creative, so you have to think social first for any form of promotion that you're doing that uses influencers, and you're putting it on social. It's no good just taking the creative that's been designed for the above the line or the shelf wobblers and plonking it on the grid, because it's just going to stick out, like Holly said, like a sore thumb. Content needs to be designed for the social platform that you're on. And so many times, big brands, there's a big bank that comes to my mind immediately on TikTok, who's taken their TV ad, 16:9 TV ad, and stuck it on a 9:16 frame. It's just not, and it's not the right size, it's not the right content, it's not getting any engagement, it's just a tick box. And it's really painful to see this happening. The other thing also potentially with for example, in promotions, any point of sale material that you create, anything like that, it may not necessarily work in the grid with the aesthetics of everything else, but getting an influencer involved gives that promotion some personality. It adds a voice to the brand, it adds a voice to the campaign, creates more openness, and it can create almost like, even a behind the scenes element to the promotion. And also for Instagram and TikTok, video is king at the moment. If you see influencer marketing, this is how sometimes we describe it, as an extension to your content teams, or an extension to a way of being able to access high quality production film content that you would otherwise be paying a production house to do. If an influencer is doing that for you and they're adding that human element and that personality to it, it's going to get more cut through than if you're doing some sort of video in a promotion in a production studio, for example. It's just going to give it more weight. It's going to be right for the platform, it's going to be right for the audience, and it's going to really cut through. Unlike just sticking something like we've seen recently, just sticking the promotional creative on the grid, it just doesn't work. And that's why we have Big Shot at Big Little London. So it's our collective of young people born after 1997, and their job is to be the channel natives, so you don't have to be. So we all know about what major platforms we should be on and how we should be doing more to be seen on them, but the algorithms and the formats for the content is changing constantly, and it's really difficult for brand managers to keep up with this. Plus the way Gen Z or Gen Alpha or any generation that is not yours engages with those platforms is going to be very different to how you instinctively engage. So we have this as a service also, so particularly TikTok. It's run by two 18 and 16-year-olds, and they just know it because they've grown up with it in the same way that me and Holly grew up with, well, we didn't grow up with Instagram, but we've become accustomed to it over the years, and that's our go-to platform. Theirs is now TikTok. So they can be there and tapped into, and know how to work with influencers on these platforms if need be.
So the winning formula. So as you can probably guess, I do not like any vanity metrics, and Emma's sort of touched on it earlier as well. But, anyone can throw around like a massive number, we got 1 million impressions. But that doesn't really mean anything. What we really want, and neither does a like really, we got 1,000 likes, great. But why were they liking that picture? Were they liking it because they just like, how you look today? Are they liking it just because they saw it and they thought, oh, that's nice, but not necessarily the brand? Who is that like for? So we really want to think about, comments, like a quality comment, not, oh, your hair looks nice today, but, oh, I really like that brand, or I really want to try that. So that's what I mean by no vanity metrics. But, we do not just want to assemble an influencer marketing. We want to build a really nurturing community, who, people who really naturally talk about your brand and really have engaged audiences, that can drive sales. So I'll talk you through our process, and every single element of this is really important. So we've talked quite a lot about the influencer analysis. That's really, really important. So definitely, we work with a leading software tech company, and from there we get all of the detailed engagement rates. We can see detailed follower analysis. So are they in the UK? But we can also be really targeted as well. So say, I don't know, there was an event in Manchester, we could find influencers who had loads and loads of followers in that area, and we could work with them. So, depending on where it is that you want to speak to people, you can also be really focused. But then also, how many of these followers are fake? So there's an actor, the main sort of Bridgerton actor on Instagram, 40% of his audience are fake. So whether or not I'm not saying he bought them, but so, at some point someone has, they have been bought, or there has been some way of him raising his profile on Instagram very highly, but they are not real. They are sort of bots. Which, that's then, let's say he's got 1 million followers on Instagram, you're only speaking to 600,000 people that are actually real. And then how many of those are active, and how many of those are in the country that you want to speak to? So the pool gets smaller and smaller, but you're actually paying for 1 million. Then negotiation. So agents will negotiate really, really hard. We have worked with influencers in the past where, the first time we have spoken to the agent, they say, that's going to be £20,000, and then we end up actually paying 5,000. The negotiation, it takes a long time, and it should do, but there's definitely a lot of room for negotiations. And obviously we have got, great relationships. We've been doing this for over 12 years. So, we know the right agents to work with. There's definitely a lot of cowboy influencers and a lot of cowboy agents out there who we definitely veer away from. But, that's really important to kind of get those preferential rates and know the value of what it is that you're paying for. And then also, making sure that the contract is sort of watertight. So a lot of influencers, for example, might post something, but then they delete it after a week. And actually, that's, again, it's really important that they don't do that. So it's having really, really watertight agreements, and then also thinking about the deliverables and where they live. Do you want to repost it on the brand channel? Does it want to go on TV? Is it going to live, in store? If so, you have to pay extra for that, or you have to negotiate that within the contract. And if you don't negotiate it, before the contract is signed, then later on they could go, oh, now you want to install, well, that's going to be an extra 20,000 because, you didn't negotiate it. So you've got to really think about things like that, and think about, paid media as well. Do you want to boost any of this content? Because if you do, you've got to bake it in. Then brand immersion sessions. These are really, really important as well. We like to have brand immersion sessions with the brand manager and then also the influencer. And then we sort of sit and facilitate those sessions. It's really important because the influencer then feels like they're really involved in the brand. You know, they are part of the family and they're not just, you know, a contractor almost. So it's really great for everyone to see the same vision, be on the same page. And of course, influencer management, you know, it takes up a lot of time, and you've got to be really on it with influencer compliance. So whether that's, you know, staying, you know, above board with the ASA and, you know, knowing the CAP guidelines, but then also just making sure that the influencer has all of the, you know, the things that they need. So, you know, making sure that their caption writing is on point so that, you know, we can help them craft that, and making sure that, you know, they are posting things at the right time, making sure that they are, you know, the deadlines are adhered to, all of those things, and it can, you know, it can go wrong, and it needs a lot of sort of due diligence there. And then influencer reporting, so that's obviously really important as well, and throughout it, you know, we'll actually set up the reporting at the start of the campaign, so making sure, you know, each influencer has a discount code that's specific to them, or, you know, making sure they have trackable links so that then we know we can directly link all sales to one specific influencer, for example. But we don't just report on impressions and likes. We also go into, you know, brand uplift and what kind of, you know, positive sentiment of a campaign or of a brand or of a product. So that's also really important too.
And this is one example that where we worked with Anna again, actually, because she's great, for Better Nature. And this was a multi-influencer campaign over 4 weeks. And why this one is interesting is because the mechanic we took from a very similar campaign that Holly ran with Itsu Grocery. And it actually, we could see from those comments that we were actually driving people from the online experience of the social campaign in store, and it was having a direct impact on sales from the comments that we were seeing, and obviously from the sales uplift that we saw then in store. But it's a tried and tested mechanic that we've done a couple of times, and it works every time, not just for the sales, but then also for the actual follower uplift on social, for the campaign engagement. I mean, a 71% campaign engagement is just unheard of, and that was all organic as well. There was no paid spend behind this, and it translated into a 0.84 purchase consideration, and the average is about 0.22%. So it worked really well.
Yeah, we were seeing some amazing comments saying, you know, I've just bought this in store because I watched your content earlier, and, you know, I've just put this in my Waitrose basket because, you know, I really want to try this. So it definitely was, you know, there's no doubt that the sales uplift was definitely due to Anna's content.
Yeah, it's about understanding, and we've done it for such a long time now. We know what mechanics work for certain objectives. So this is one that's been tried and tested. It was four influencers over 4 weeks running a bit of a competition amongst each other, and it's perfect for when you are trying to do a bit of both, do a bit of social engagement, but then also drive sales and in-store activity as well.
Yeah. Then we also ran an ALA insurance campaign called Your Life with an influencer called Mama Still Got It, Louise Boyce. She's absolutely fantastic. She actually created 4 films with us, and each one was scripted specifically for her. So and I really do genuinely think that's one of the reasons why the campaign did so well, because it was really in her voice. Again, the alignment was exact, so it really didn't stick out like an advert. It was just generated like a funny piece of content, but also did deliver, you know, that sort of brand awareness piece, product engagement and awareness as well. And then also, you know, of course, at the end, she gave everyone a 10% discount code, which her followers used. So the ROI on that one was 9.25%. Click to quote conversion was 31. Of course, the 340,000 organic impressions, and really great positive and neutral sentiment, which is amazing, because I'm sure the car one, we don't have it, but I'm sure it was 90% negative.
And this one was an IPM award winner last year as well, which is even more brilliant why we're sharing it on here. So influencers and promotions. So what this all means for the IPM audience specifically. So they complement each other. There's no doubt about that. So an influencer marketing strategy can work perfectly to enhance a promotion at several stages. And we've been talking about this for years. When I was at the promotional agency that I was at, Holly actually used to come in and help us on certain pitches, the influencer element side of things. But for some reason, it just never really quite happened. And we're seeing it happen more now, but actually we're seeing it some, you know, not too dissimilar from some of the examples. We're seeing it not done quite right. And that's why we joined the IPM, because we really want to bridge that gap and make sure that it's done right. And agencies are seeing more bang for buck for their clients, and we're generating more revenue for everybody, basically. So it can drive awareness ahead of any launch of any promotion. A couple of shelf wobblers, on-pack stickers, they don't really cut it anymore. They do when you're actually in the store, but how about actually getting people to the store and sharing the news of an upcoming promotion in the place where your audience are actually living every day? In terms of the ease of redemption, so you can use influencers to showcase the redemption journey, as we often know that that's a barrier to participation, showing people how easy it is, but then also actually bring into life the end reward as well. So what better way to show off the reward than an influencer actually enjoying that day out with their family, or redeeming that free gift, or showing what they bought with the money that they saved instead. And then going back almost to the long-term partnerships with influencers, we know that more brands and more agencies are promoting longer-term campaigns, longer-term promotions, loyalty schemes. So working with influencers as partners over that long period of time means that they can remind their audience regularly of that promotion or that loyalty program, and you can really embed yourselves within that target audience that you're trying to attract and convert. And it just maintains that steady rate of engagement, that steady rate of sales. And like we said before, with regards to the long-term partnerships with influencers, it's that long-term ROI that's really important, and that's what's going to make you stand out with your clients, or if you're a client listening, is what's going to give you most bang for buck. And we actually were part of, so Mando presented what Brits want from Promotions 2.0, and as part of that research a couple of months ago or last month, it shared that under 25s are less promotionally active than other generations. Now, we have to ask ourselves, is that because we are using old, tried and tested methods of promoting to them and advertising these promotions to them? Are we just relying on things like shelf wobblers or on-pack stickers, when actually we should be engaging them in the places where they actually are? And then if we are doing that, we have to ask ourselves, well, how are we doing it? In the same way that Holly was talking about authenticity of followers of a certain influencer, you know, are we using people that are actually our target audience? Are the more than 60% of them not based in the UK, or have they got an engagement rate of less than 3%? If those answers are yes, then it's being done wrong. So employing influencers, but employing the right influencers to spread news about the promotion could be a way to reach this demographic of people that are ordinarily quite difficult for us to reach in the promotional space. So what's next? So in terms of risk versus reward and managing redemptions, this is always something that comes up in this space. working with the right influencers can only enhance your agency reputation with your client for no greater risk or cost than showing a promotion on a digital 6-sheet, on a TVC, or POS in store. You get to build that long-term brand value between the client and their target audience, but you also give the client access to evergreen content that they can use on their other social channels. And you also give them access to more data and insights about who their target audience actually is, because we get that through the reporting directly from the influencers side as well, from the end of the campaign. And then something that's come up recently in a couple of conversations I've had with other IPM members is about managing redemptions. So just like we spoke about, an influencer with over 500,000 followers doesn't necessarily mean more redemptions, because if less than 60% of their audience is in the operating market where the promotion is running, so let's say the UK, for example, and their engagement rate is less than 3%, then the promotion is unlikely to reach any of the target audience. So the risk of the redemptions is much less, let's say, than perhaps a micro-influencer with 20,000 influencers, highly engaged audience, majority of them, 80% based in the UK. It's potentially going to drive more redemptions. So if that is something that you guys are struggling with, then we can also help you with that as well, provide a bit of clarity on it. But this is really important, and we sort of touched upon this a bit earlier in the importance of the strategy and coming up with the right influencers and making sure they're aligned with the brand. It's not a tick box. It can't be an afterthought. It's just as important as any other source of media promotion that you're using as part of your campaign. If you want to get the results, they need to be considered from the start. These are real people, unlike any other, PPC or any other form of sort of programmatic paid media. These are real people who have real followers with real clout. So it's so much more important that it's right from the start. Or we called out, like the car brand that we spoke about. But if this is your first time, as we were talking about managing influencers, and Holly was talking about that during our process, if you haven't done this before, don't try it now with your next campaign. There are so many moving parts to making sure that a campaign is successful, from posting plans and scripts and captions and reporting, contracting negotiations. All of these things there is a fine balance between them all. So it's a job in itself, not necessarily one for an inexperienced, already overstretched account handler. So again, if you need any help, let us know. We can help with that. And there we go. Need some help. And we're obviously now welcome to any questions.
That was brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Emma and Holly. Really, really insightful. As I mentioned at the top of the webinar, if you want to pose any more questions, please put these into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Thank you again for taking us through that. It presented quite a lot of interesting topics of thought, particularly for myself, and a few questions being one of which I know it's something that I've seen quite a lot in my career, and it's something I'm seeing a lot more of now, is the fact that people are actually taking influencer collaborations offline, and they're utilizing influencers in more of an event space, or whether it's experiential marketing or live activations. What sort of considerations would you advise, or tips when it comes to working with influencers in an offline space as well?
The contracting is almost more important then. I think Holly will agree with that. People are quite difficult to manage just when they're online. So if they're actually in real life, representing your brand and engaging with your customers in real life, especially in the context of a festival, let's say, or an event where there might be alcohol involved, then that needs a really tight handle on things. Also, you want to make sure that if they've been contracted to attend that festival and do a job, that they actually deliver on the deliverables that they've been contracted to do, and not just turn up for the jolly and the good time, as we've seen before happen. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Holes.
No, I agree. I mean, generally, if I've ever done sort of an in-person event or festival with an influencer, there is always someone from the agency there to help them, to take photos, to make sure that all of the deliverables are done. If you can't be there in person, I think it's like that's why those brand immersion sessions are really important, because then they feel part of the team. They haven't just read an email, gone yeah, okay, and then off we go. I don't know those people, they don't really exist because I haven't met them. At least when you've met the people, you respect them a little bit more. It seems a bit more formal. So I would definitely recommend one of those two.
Wonderful. We've had a question as well come in from Sophie. Would like to know more about brands that can tap into Big Shot that you mentioned earlier in the presentation.
Yeah, so there is a number of ways that brands can get involved with Big Shot. There's from off the cuff vox pops to more longer form surveys and interviews, creative testing. So these people are very they say what they think. They don't think too, and they don't think too much about it. It just that's the benefit of working with young people. And some of them are very young as well. We had a comment piece that we were working on about the role of influencers in Gen Alpha, and we've got quite a few people of the Gen Alpha age in our initial cohort of people, and it's just amazing just hearing some of their reactions. How they react to people being disingenuous, trying to tell them how to make free slime. It's like, it's just crazy how switched on this generation is, and the terminology that they're using, because they're engaging in platforms and watching adults talk so much. I was just like, it blows me away. Like, they were actually calling the platforms and not calling them TikTok or YouTube. It's like, that's a term that's like what we say in the marketing world. Like, we talk about platforms. I didn't expect a 10-year-old to be using that word. So it's really fun actually to work with them. So there's more information on our website. If you want to get involved, just drop us a message.
Amazing. And another thing that we've seen is actually a rise as well of influencers. When we talk about influencers, we do tend to think of more of a B2C capacity, but we have seen a rise of influencers in a B2B sense. What are kind of your thoughts on that?
The same concepts apply, maybe less so, with regards to, you still need contracts, of course, if anyone is representing your brand, but the same concepts apply in terms of starting with your strategy, not just looking at follow account and clout that way, but looking into the data. There is a really large B2B tech company at the moment that's championing, or SAP, they're championing B2B influencer marketing at the moment. And even just hearing about some of their practices, about how they go about sourcing their influencers, they have a database that is just scraping the internet again. So where's that human connection? And then there's a job of actually creating that human connection with the people that they reach out to, and figuring out if they've got good engagement rates and all of those sorts of things. So I think the principles are really similar, and it's definitely something we're going to see more of in the next 12 months.
Fantastic. And I think as well, just to elaborate on some of the stuff that you said, I think one of the key challenges as well with influencer, although it has been around for for quite a number of years now, I think because there's always new platforms and all these different things that are coming into the mix. And I think one of the challenges is understanding where does influencer sit within my wider marketing strategy? How do I start factoring it in? And you touched on it at the latter part of the presentation to say, well, don't just kind of throw an influencer in there and hope for the best. So just kind of coming back to it, and if I'm acting as a marketing manager at a brand, even if it's a small brand, and I'm wanting to start thinking about incorporating influencer as part of my wider marketing strategy, what is step one?
Holes, this is for you.
Well, it's definitely you definitely have to think about it when you're creating your strategy. So it should be baked into your strategy. It has to be. And if it's bolted onto the end, it's very apparent, and it never ever works as successfully as if if the mechanic is sort of baked into the strategy. And then from strategy you go to creative, and from there, that's sort of where you figure out the kind of influencer who has the correct aesthetic, the correct creative capabilities to then create whatever it is that you're trying to do. Obviously, in the background, you're also looking at who their audience are and doing all of your sort of analysis, but it definitely has to come into, so, okay, let's say you are creating a marketing campaign to sell your new drinks brand. You've got a new flavor, so what is it that you're going to be doing? Where is that going to be? It needs to come there.
Would you advise as well that one of the key ways to, I know what you were saying about influencers becoming a lot more savvy with it now, and they are wanting to work with brands that align with their values as well. Of course, brands that they're really interested in. I would say Gemma Atkinson, I think, is an influencer that I follow. She's quite passionate about this. If I'm from a brand's perspective, how would I go about then sourcing influencers who actually enjoy my brand, whether it's a food product or a drink product or fashion, whatever that might be? Is that where you start going more down kind of the gifting route, or how would you go about finding influencers who are genuinely fans of the brand?
Well, generally, whoever is running your social accounts would see people talking specifically about certain brands, or you listen to a podcast and people will mention your brand name various amounts of times. You can also find, you can use tech platforms to find people who have been searching or not searching for, mentioning your brand, and then you can work with them. But then also, having really good relationships with agents like we do. So we might say, oh, hi, X, we're working on this brand at the moment, but, do you have anyone who, loves cleaning or loves doing this or loves this product? And they might come back to you, let's say they have 50 people on their books. They will then, do a bit of a search for you. So that's also a good way of finding, because they might, may not be saying, oh, I love Marmite all the time, or I love this all the time. But, behind closed doors, there might be like constantly eating Marmite on toast and you just never know it. So yeah, definitely a mixture of tech, a mixture of looking at who's, talking about you on your socials, and then, just having really good relationships with the right people.
You mentioned it there about that whole element of kind of budgets and contracts and things like that. I think that is one of the, when I speak to people, that's one of the most daunting things as well, is it's all well and good, I know the influencers that I want to work with, and then I come to the contract and the negotiation stage, and I think because there is no set kind of boilerplate, because the landscape's changing all the time. What would you say are kind of the key considerations to navigate that contract element into, who owns the content, when's it posted, all these different things?
Yeah, I think it's really tricky, and I've sort of got it down to a bit of fine art now, but it took a long time. But definitely think about what, let's say you're saying, oh, we want to own the content, but if you can own the content in perpetuity, but you might not actually need to. So you might be paying for something that after 1 year it's never going to sort of be used again. So then actually just buy it for 1 year or for 6 months or for 2 years. So not buying full usage in perpetuity is definitely something that I don't think most people and most brands need. unless it was a bigger TV ad and you were going to sort of reuse it for years to come. But you know, I think really thinking about what the use is and why, you know, is it you're trying to drive traffic from an influencer to your website, then definitely introduce stories. You know, stories might be a better place to start than a post. Definitely at the moment, you know, video is huge. Gets much better traction than you know, just a photo post. So you definitely don't want to be paying for, you know, a post versus video. Yeah, there are a lot of different elements that, you know, you have to think of, but I think it's just figuring out what it is that you're trying to achieve. If it is, you know, video views, then definitely pay for a reel. If it is driving traffic, then you might do stories. You know, there's a lot to think about there, but I think, yeah, definitely thinking about what it is that you're trying to achieve and then figuring out what's important.
Brilliant. And I think we've got time for just one more question. I had another question that's coming from Emma. Have you worked with many brands who are highly regulated, for example, gambling or alcohol industries? And do you have any advice when faced with those sort of advertising restrictions?
Yeah, we have. Definitely, I've worked with a lot of alcohol brands. Obviously, a key one is making sure that the audience, 75% of them are over the age of 25. So, you know, that sort of data piece right at the start is key, because if you're not hitting all of those sort of regulations in accordance with, you know, that body, then you could be fined massively for that. And I think TikTok actually just got massively fined for having loads of under 13-year-olds on as users. So, you know, those, yes, we have worked with them. It's just being really up to date with what all of the guidelines are, and then making sure that we adhere to them throughout. But, you know, all of that is done sort of in the key sort of data analysis part at the very start. Don't know if you have any more to add, Emma.
No, you've covered it. You can still be obviously really creative, even despite the regulations. You've done some really cool stuff with booze brands.
Brilliant. Well, that's really great. Thank you ever so much for answering those questions, and as well to those of you that put forth the questions. I think it helps us kind of elaborate on some of the key topics as well that you were talking about throughout the presentation. And I think, you know, in terms of the relationship between influencer marketing and promotional marketing, is exactly what you were saying, Emma. Is very much got its part to play in terms of the promotional marketing mix and how influencers are utilized in the best practice in order to achieve the desired results.
Yeah.
And once again, thank you ever so much for joining us on today's webinar. The webinar will be available to watch on demand on the IPM website, and you should also receive a follow-up email as well when this is available. And you will also get follow-up information to get in touch with Big Little London should you want any more information on influencer marketing. Thank you once again for everybody that joined us. Look forward to seeing you on the next IPM webinar series. Emma and Holly, thanks once again.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.